is about our practical ways that we use our spiritual gifts, talents, and skills in our everyday life. The way we bring out the best in ourselves by embodying ourselves and having a question and answer session as if it was just a conversation sitting in the backyard having a glass of iced tea. Today's guest is John Michael. He's a poet. We're going to take a journey into his world. So hold on just a second. And here we go. Can you hear me, John?
Hey, how are you?
I'm fine. How are you?
I'm good. I've been really excited for this talk today, to be honest with you. These are the conversations that I love having, and
Okay.
it just so happens that it's just been. You mind if I get into something real quick? Um,
Hold on a second. Just let me
okay.
get to the right screen. There we go.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, I want you to give us an introduction of yourself,
Okay.
uh, and do it the best way you want to do it. This is as much your moment as it is mine.
Thank you. Thank you. Well, I'm John Michael. I grew up in Boston, Massachusetts. Kind of. I left Massachusetts when I was 26 and moved to Virginia, part of a work thing. But, growing up, I grew up on the water and kind of grew up really fast in life from a really young age. And a lot of bad things happened, a lot of good things happened, but, anyway, I ended up in Virginia and I've been here for 20 plus years now. But, yeah, probably about the age of 11, I started writing as a part of a therapy thing, which kind of opened up a lot of doorways. The person that convinced me to start writing, just said, hey, every night, just write down, empty your thoughts at night. Doesn't matter if it rhymes, doesn't matter what it is. If it's a story, it could just be the same word over and over again, but just write it down. And that's what I started to do. And, um, at one point in my life, I realized that I could go back and take a look at that. And, it might all be, mental vomit, but every once in a while, you kind of pick something out. And
Right.
it just makes sense, almost like you're telling yourself something. It's that subconscious, deep subconscious stream or flow that we can get in.
Mhm.
Um, So I've learned at a really young age how to kind of access that. Never really put too much thought into it, but anyway, I'm getting off track. Um, so I'm a poet here in Richmond. I write through reflection. Um, I would say a good 90% of my pieces are self-reflective pieces.
Okay.
Um, and then the other 10% I'm just having fun. But a lot of it is writing through trauma, writing through, just kind of peeking back at the past or a failing that hits you, and you're able to just access that and instantly be portholed, kind of thrown into a porthole back to that instance and really experience it for what it is. Um, I think so many of us um, grow up with this one track mind where we think everybody thinks alike and everybody feels alike, so everybody should be just like us. And, it's the furthest thing from the truth,
True.
Um,
Yeah.
s- so to be able to go back and kind of look at instances from a 360 view, not just through your own set of eyes, but through everybody else's eyes. Because we all think differently. We all feel things differently. Um, what could set me off and make me angry might set you off and make you sad. It's we all correlate things so differently.
Yeah.
So to be able to go back and touch on those things and actually see things for what they really are, and not what I thought they were at the time, and then really be able to say, okay, well, why did I feel that way? Why did I think that way? What was it that made that situation what it was? Um, and I'm able to explore that through my writing and really get in touch with it. And then, once you kind of figure out what it is, okay, now change that.
Right.
What do I have to do to change that to become a better me? So that never happens again. And then, kind of break it down into little tiny fragments of achievable goals that you can hit every single day to become that person that you want to be.
Yeah. That's what I do. I that's why I do what I do.
Mm,
I mean, I never knew it. I never really, John, I never really thought about, I've been doing it my whole life. But now that I get the opportunity to be deep into it, that it's my next story of my life, my next life journey. I
yes.
can now go back and see the little pieces of how it reflected back in little pieces, right?
Mhm,
And where yours is is poetry, mine was always being, I never really thought about it. Mine was always because I was vocal as a child and a teenager, and a child, a preteen and a teenager, and some of my young life, some of it, um, that that was, those were my spiritual gifts that were starting to sprout from the root,
mhm,
right? And I used to think when I first came into this when it was first opened up in when I was doing my spiritual walk and starting listening to people base, the deeper your trauma was, or the harder your trauma was, or childhood trauma was, that was the only way that you were going to be, um, uh, that's the only way that your gifts were going to be, that you were going to get more gifts than other people did, based on where you sat spiritually or will sit spiritually from your trauma. And with my, I'm not going to say I had a perfect childhood. I don't think any of us do. I think that's our growing experience.
mhm,
But I didn't, if I had to base my childhood trauma on other people's, I did not grow up as a young girl being abused by my fathers or uncles.
mhm.
My mother wasn't a tyrant. Um, I I was a hard-headed kid, you know,
So,
right? And but I wasn't, my mother wasn't abusive with the belt. Whenever she used the belt, it was she used it without malice. She
mhm,
used it as a, here, couple of strikes. Do you get what I mean? And then she would put it down. She wasn't abusive. She didn't have a mean streak or anything. So I kind of thought, well, then shit, what do I have to bring to the world if I don't have any traumas like other people, where, um, I wasn't gang raped. I had never been raped by a man. I've been talked to or talked down to by
yeah.
boys or men, but I didn't consider that trauma. I mean, I do have certain traumas that showed up in different ways, but it wasn't like physical or anything like that. So I just didn't think I had any spiritual gifts or talents or any kind of skill like that, you know, that kind of thing. But at the same time, I didn't have any traumas that somebody could say, here is a book. Why don't you write down? Why don't you journal?
Mhm.
Right? I
Yeah, I
didn't
mean,
learn.
that was like that. When I look back now, like that person putting that book in front of me and just saying, right. Um,
Early fame on Full House,
Oh,
to
hold
really,
their
on a
really,
second.
global fashion empire.
I don't know what happened here. My phone just went off. That's interesting.
it really changed the game. But it's not like from that moment on, I wrote every day, and it would come and go.
Hmm.
I wrote a lot when I was a kid, and then it kind of went away for a while. Like I didn't, every once in a while I would write something down, but um, it wasn't an everyday practice, so to say. Um, where later in life it became an everyday practice for me.
Okay.
Um,
It did in, you said later in life, as life went on, you found that you needed it more,
I
or
did like it got away from me, and I would write here and there. It's not like I gave up altogether, but maybe I would sit down and actually write like maybe 3 or 4 times a year or something like that. It wasn't a steady flow thing for me. And then I'd say probably about 6 years ago is when I really started picking up the pen and writing daily. Um, and you can look back at some of that, and I found a couple pieces that are real old, like from my early 20s, that are hysterical to kind of go and look back at. But
hmm,
you also kind of see where you grew from. But the most powerful pieces I end up writing are in a deep subconscious kind of like I'm just you open up your eyes and there it is right in front of you and you're like, oh my God, what the hell just happened?
do you feel
Um,
like you've gone into, could it be that you've gone into a meditative state, or is it a state of, is it an energetic state of healing, possibly?
I think it's a little bit of a few different things. Um, I know a lot of times, even before I got on this show, um, I ran down and grabbed a couple canvases and I said, "Man, I'm gonna paint for a while before I get on this show because painting puts me into that meditative state where everything drowns out and everything goes quiet and it's just me, paint, and a canvas."
Hmm.
And a lot of times I'll do something like that and then sit down and write. Um, because then I just start typing and I don't stop until I'm done. And then, a lot of those pieces that I write like that are one start stop piece. And very rarely do I go back and edit it. I like that rawness of it
Hmm.
because it's raw emotion through my words, and it's usually something that hits me that I haven't thought about in a long time. Like right now, all this week, I've been going through this. So it's kind of like something's inside me that's screaming to come out, almost like a storm brewing. And, it started at the beginning of the week. And, I came home from work and I was talking to my sister, not my real sister, but she's soul sister, real family. And I was telling her, I said, there's this one thing that I haven't let go of yet, and I don't really know why I'm not letting go of it. It's unhealthy. I know I have to let go. I really know I have to do. But at this point, it's kind of like a cat and mouse thing. I'm like really interested in, I
Has
don't
it
know.
has through your poetry or through your art, has it revealed itself to you yet?
Oh yeah, yeah, it has, and I'm getting to that. So we started talking about it. And I said, you know what? I said I'm done with it right now. I said I'm over it, and it had to do with another person.
Hmm.
I don't want to really go too far into that, but I said, okay, I'm done. I'm not gonna block them if they want to read my material. That's fine, but like I can't participate anymore. I'm just unfollow, unfriend. I don't want to see them popping up or anything.
Hmm.
And I let go, and really, I came upstairs and I just sat down and started writing. And like this piece just started flowing out of me, and it was only like two stanzas that came out, and I was like, man, what the hell is this? This is the middle of the piece, but it brought me back to a memory just before I got clean that really kind of uh, I've struggled my whole life with, race in mind, spinning thoughts, and drug addiction on and off throughout my whole life. When my kids were born, I got clean and stayed clean for many, many years. And, kind of really built up my life and did so in a way that, within several years, I had a house and I was married and had kids and I was doing really good, had the new cars and had everything I wanted and was building this massive career. And, I was really proud of myself for that at that time because I was a street kid. I dropped out of school in the eighth grade. I went to
Mm,
work on the fishing boats. I grew up working on the lobster boats and crabbing boats, and I ended up making that a career up
right.
until my first daughter was about to be born, and then I said, well, I got to change everything about myself, and clean up my act, and got clean, and built this career, and then 2009 hit, and that bubble popped and I lost everything. I mean, I almost lost my house, everything. And that devastated me. But I picked right back up and started going again. I gained everything back. And then just about the time I gained it back, I went through a divorce. At that point, I was traveling a lot. Everything about me had been, you know, the American dream. I have to have the house. I have to have the perfect family. I have to have all this money. I gotta, it's all this, and I bought into it and I thought I was doing the right thing. And, I call like these moments where the mind and the soul clash. And it makes a
Yeah.
strike and it makes a core memory.
Hmm.
Where and you don't know what these memories mean. You just have them from time to time. You're like, what the hell is going on? So I went on and rebuilt it back another time after that, and then lost it all again, and lost the relationship in the process of that, and didn't realize it affected me until about 3 months later, when it seemed like all my traumas rushed back and hit me all at once and just leveled me.
Right.
I went to a darker place in my mind than I have ever been. Um, I completely given up. I was dead inside. I didn't want to continue, and that was kind of it. Um,
So through all of that, I know that would be at a space and time, but through all of that, were you were you subject? Were you did you allow yourself to write something down to alleviate?
I was, and it was not through my marriage. After my divorce is when I started writing again. That was about 2006, the very beginning of 2016. I
Mhm.
started writing a lot, and that's when I kind of started the spiritual journey
Ah,
because I went and looked at everything and I said, what in the hell led me here? How did I get here?
right,
I went from this point in my life to pushing through and doing a complete 180. And how did I get here?
right.
And I started going back and kind of looking at moments and these core memories and trying to figure out what was it? And I thought I had a good handle on it for a minute there, and I was on a great spiritual path, and everything was going great in my life.
Hmm.
And I had this one teacher down in Mexico that I used to talk to a lot, and he was kind of like a spiritual leader of sorts, and
Was he a shaman?
he was, he was, and he said, Mike, I know everything's going great right now, but you're gonna have another death. He said, and you're gonna it's gonna force you to question every single thing in your life. And I didn't believe him. I was feeling so high at that moment in my life. I was like, nothing can knock me down right now. And
Hmm.
it did. It did. It came in the form of another relationship that was the most mental abuse I have ever gone through in my life. Didn't even realize it until towards the end of it.
Okay.
Um, and when I got out of that relationship, that's when everything hit me at once, and I was just completely leveled. I couldn't. Something inside me broke at that moment, and I didn't know how to fix it for the first time in my life.
That's
And
so that was what you would call your very first dark night of the soul.
uh-huh, and
And
that
your shaman was correct that it was going to change the whole trajectory of how you saw everything. Yeah.
absolutely, absolutely. From that point on is when I really truly started to grasp the 360 view.
Hmm.
Truly, like, everybody thinks differently. Everybody's minds are wired differently. So if everybody thinks differently, everybody feels differently. Because how I might connect one thought to a feeling, it might be completely opposite for you. So I noticed, you could go through similar instances because, I had this one moment, and this is well back several years before any of that took place. But a really good friend of mine, he was kind of leveled from trauma. He couldn't, and he told me what it was, and I was like, man, but I've been through so much more in my life, and I really didn't get it. I was like, man, just pick it up and let's go. I'm right here for you. Like, we could do this together. And he was like, Mike, you just don't understand. I did not understand until I went through it myself.
Right.
When I was completely leveled, it was everything just to breathe, and
Mm,
people want you to talk about it, and it's like you won't even understand. Like, I can't, and I felt so alone, and it brought me to such a dark place that took place over 2 years.
okay.
um and my addiction really took off during that time, and I was just trying to process everything. I took off. I traveled cross country in my car. Figured, okay, I'll get on the highway and just kind of look back on everything and reflect on everything and try to just figure it all out, and get myself back on track. And my addiction fueled even more, to the point about 4 months ago now, is where I had kind of this break. I want to call it a drug induced psychosis, but it really wasn't. And that's what kind of letting go of that one thing kind of unlocked that night. And I went right back to that memory of this breakdown that occurred over 4 days, of where I thought I was being attacked from all angles, from all different people all over. But really, what it was is I was looking at myself for the first time, and I did not like what I seen at all. I was so disgusted. I was ready to take my own life in that moment. And I had never been so scared in my life. I have seen the gates of hell, and I have felt it, but I also felt the hand of something higher in that moment.
Hmm.
And it was a fighter. It was it's all an end now, or we're gonna fight. And nothing has been the same in my life since then. I have literally been changing every single aspect of myself daily.
And that's
Um,
where the writing, that's where the true poetry came, is self-reflection, maybe.
yeah, I would say over the last year, my poetry has really started to get really deep. And over the last 6, 7, 8 years, I mean, it's been coming out, but it was like these little small pieces, and I can read some for you later if you want. But like the deeper, longer, the real analytical view of everything, and allowing myself to go back to that moment to feel it, release it, and then come out of it.
Oh,
And
so over the years, you have been writing pockets of things as you felt them.
mhm,
Now you get to go, it's kind of like a compilation where you get to go back, and that's your way of feeling it and
mhm,
then releasing it or surrendering it. Where
mhm,
somebody else might just go and have a meditation moment and get to that moment where they find it and then they release it. You do it through your poetry.
correct,
Okay, got it. I'm on
correct.
the same
And
page with you.
Yeah, it just really allows me to take a good look at it and see it for what it was and feel it and then just release it. Be done. Okay, there it is, you know. Um, I'm kind of answering my own questions when I'm in that state, or I'm telling myself, you know, right before I got clean, I wrote this piece.
Let me
And
hear it.
I've been looking and trying to find it. And there's one line at the end of it that says, do you have to burn down the whole forest to produce one seed of growth?
Ah,
And what I was telling myself, it was almost like a prophetic moment. I don't mean to say it like that, but it I was telling myself, do you need to burn everything down
do you,
to
yes.
restart and
Do
grow?
you really need to go through that alchemizing fire
Correct.
just to come back? Be that phoenix through
Right.
grow through the ashes. Yeah,
Correct.
correct.
Correct. And that's when I thought about that as well, and I was like, "Oh my God," I was telling myself, "Listen, you don't have to burn yourself right into the ground on this one. You've got the right people around you. All your angels are around you right now. You can just stop and breathe for a second and reach out and just open up and be your true self for once, and
Hmm.
just let down that disguise, and the right people are here in place to help you."
Right.
And of course, I didn't listen to myself and I burnt everything right down to the ground. But that's what I needed to do to have that vision that I later looked back at and looked at and said, wow, that was me really taking a good look at what I had become at that moment and saying, no, 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 no. How did this happen? Everything has to change and it has to change now.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. I've always, for me, I mean, my dark night of the soul. I can say I've been through quite a lot of them, but my dark night of the soul, the one that just kind of everything was everything was put out there for me to see, and everything. I won't say it took me to the point where I wanted to kill myself or anything, but it took me into the abyss of me. Okay. And the abyss, when I say the abyss of me, it's not a bad thing. The unknown is not a bad thing of yourself. It's
no,
it's difficult for us because we have all these feelings and we have all these emotions that we've trapped, we've layered everything on top of. And and sometimes with a dark night of the soul, and I don't even like calling it the dark night of the soul. I prefer the dark night lit by the soul. That's all our soul is doing. Is our soul is 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 taking us through, and as it's walking us through, it's helping us illuminate our own light on all of our story.
right,
And for me, uh, at that point, I don't think, see, for me, I didn't have, at least I don't believe that I had anything like poetry. I wrote, I dabbled, but then, kind of put it to the side,
right.
because for me, poetry, I was taught at from a certain frame of mind that poetry had to rhyme, and I wasn't good at that
Oh,
and
no,
whatnot, right? So, but for me, that dark night was everything that was going catawampus as I'm looking at life. That that moment where the that my higher being, my soul said, "Oh, all right, all stop." Right inside me, I just heard this whisper, "Stop." And looking at everything that was falling apart for me, I just kind of went inward, started, and going, well, I thought I was doing it right. You
right.
know, I thought,
Well,
I thought I understood the law of attraction. I thought I understood the law of vibration. What's going on? Why is there a breakdown? And it wasn't that anybody around me, I still had my nucleus family. I was a single mom, a divorced single mom. And uh, my kids were teenagers getting ready to embark on young adulthood, but they were all successfully moving through, and they were creative.
Right.
You know what I mean? So I could, when I would see my son sitting at, with this little notebook writing he would just write one sentence and feel great about not a sentence, but, in his, to when he start writing, I would see his process and how he felt good about those one or two sentences that would later become lyrics and later become songs or rap songs or whatnot for
Right.
different artists that would come in and say, hey, we want, could you produce this for us? And his idea was to become, at that point in time. So I would watch my kids, and I didn't know then that they had this outlet of, they were out had this outlet of how they viewed life,
Uh-huh.
right? So my older son was a dancer, and his idea was to be to choreograph at that particular time. And I mean, he could do it all. He could do ballet. He could, that whole thing. And my daughter was she did ballet and she danced, and she wanted to teach little kids to do this. But I just went through this. All of a sudden, I went through this dark night, and I said, nobody's here for me. They don't hear me screaming. They don't hear me crying, that kind of thing. And uh, then all of a sudden the light went on, and I felt this vibrational, like a vibration of someone holding my hand. Like you said, my guardian angels, my generational spirit guides, the whole kind of thing. But I still hadn't put two and 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 two together, So whereas for me, I didn't have that outlet of writing music or painting. So when you were going through that transitional moment, and you had that total breakdown of who you were you were you did the vibrational did that vibrational moment catch you then? Did
It
it?
did. It did. When that happened, I said enough is enough. That there was like 4 days where it was, it could have went either way, to be honest with you. And I
Mhm,
was thankful enough to have somebody near and dear and close that just kept an eye on me and knew how to talk to me.
mhm,
And at that moment, I said, everything's got to change, and it's got to change now." And I
okay.
literally locked myself in the room. I went through everything I had to go through. I'd only leave to get something to eat, use the bathroom, more water, and I painted, and I painted, and I wrote, and I painted, and I wrote, and I have been doing it ever since. And like it's very meditative for me, and it allows me to reach deep in
Mhm.
and really write these pieces that are lessons. One. Um, and some are just telling the deep dark truth, and it's a lot of shadow work, and
So you've done
it's
that,
very
is your
rewarding.
it that's your you've done for me, almost all of my shadow works have, the divine has had me going through them, uh most of the time just me and the divine. And then there's other times where the divine would have other people intercede, like mainly on Instagram. I will tell you, I've had a lot of soul family, that I would just be on their live, we'd just be talking, and all of a sudden I would go, the divine would say, that vibrational, it's time. And then everything would coordinate together, depending on what the shadow work was about, what the energy was to release, and everything. So my question is, your mental, emotional, and physical took 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 place in this shadow work in your room with you and the divine.
Mhm.
You, the divine, your art and your poetry.
Mhm.
Correct.
Yeah,
Then
over the last 4 months, that's I've went back to work and everything, of course. So I mean, I work. I've got myself on a strict schedule. I'm very process oriented. I have to have a process in my life. That's just the way my mind works.
okay.
Um,
So is that, if you don't mind me asking, is that maybe being on this? Are you on the spectrum of like ADHD or
oh
ADD
yeah,
or?
yeah, yeah, yeah. I've been dealing with ADHD, bipolar, um, what knows what else, but I could be on the spectrum of autism too. I don't know. I've
Yeah.
never been tested, but definitely, that has been a struggle my whole life.
Okay.
Now I'm so aware of myself. Like I know who I am now. I know what offsets. I know what triggers I have. And I choose to let who I want around me.
Hmm.
Choose to do the things that I need to do for me. I have to live for me. Just chasing my dream of writing now, and as long as I put healthy things in place, and I keep my mind occupied, because the moment I let my mind go, it's gonna spin out down a path,
Hmm.
and I'm gonna start looking at every moment from this very analytical view and pick it apart until I can find the brink of the moment that went wrong, and you can go to some very dark places there when you allow that to happen. Over the 2 years that I was in a bad place, I did not work. I wasn't working. I was just kind of off doing my thing, and I just allowed myself to continually spiral out.
Right.
Um,
Someone by the name of spoken Scots. Great watch. Cheers, bro. Scotty BTW.
oh, okay. I
Okay.
know. I mean, he's a great poet from Scotland.
Okay.
Um, Tremendous poet. Yeah, check him out for sure. He's a good one.
Well,
He's
thank
a
you.
good one.
Thank you for the. Can you see the comments as well?
Yeah, yeah. I
Yeah.
just seen
Right.
it pop
Okay.
up.
Okay. Great. This. I will tell you right now, guys. Thank you for showing up. Um, I am a new visionary and restream channeling or uh, channeling and restreaming and all of this is new to me. And I thank you for your patience, and I thank you for joining me again with this wonderful guest. We're going to hear some of his poetry. You know that, right, guys? We're gonna hear some of his poetry. But what I'm trying to, because there are four levels of healing. There's the energetic level, the emotional level, the mental level, and the physical level. And the things that we go through um, in our healing process, understand that for me, healing can be going to your psychiatrist or psychologist or your therapist or even doing shadow work. But it's about for me, through healing you find out some of your I call them spiritual gifts, because I believe that the divine is truly interactive with it. But you don't have to call it a spiritual or a religious or anything like that. It can just be a gift that you've had that you didn't realize was as important to you until you go through something. And then that gift kind of like it starts to shine, and it lets you know how you can use it, right? For me, my gift was finding out that me being a Gemini and a chatterbox, Okay, literally, that certain people said, "I love when you listen to me. I love when you talk to me. Sometimes you just make sense just by chitter chatter, and all of a sudden things come through." And I didn't know that I could help heal other people that way. And I went, "Oh, is this what you mean a gift?" You know. So the reason why uh, I believe we need to understand people that are, people that are in our lives. We have these people that trigger us or activate us. They're the activation. They're the energy that becomes the catalyst that gets us focused on something. What uh, what were those triggers that got you focused on that now moment, that moment that took you into your room for 4 days of this dark night, that you began to release yourself?
It was, like I said, I went through, I thought at the moment it had to be, drug-induced psychosis because all of a sudden, and it felt really real. I felt like I was being attacked from all these angles, and like I said, I had a friend that was near and dear and kinda watched me through all that and, kinda talking me through it, but, um, really what it was is I was having visions of my own life and where I was at right then, like where I had, because I had finally bottomed out. It was done,
Hmm.
and part of that was part of that 2 years. I kind of separated myself from everybody. I stopped. I hate saying this, but I wasn't talking to my children as much during
Hmm.
that time. I knew what I was doing was wrong. I knew that I had given up and that was wrong. I
Uh-huh.
knew that I had flared up my addiction issues again and that was wrong. And I just couldn't look anybody in the eye. So when I had these visions, I mean, it was almost like being in hell and it felt and it still feels so very, very, very real. But it was truly me taking a really good look at where I was in life at that point.
Hmm.
And it was, I couldn't live with that. That was unacceptable to me. I couldn't believe that I allowed myself to get to those depths. And not that I was doing anything, the only person I was hurting was myself. I was also hurting other people around me by doing what I was doing, of course.
Yes.
But the way I seen it at that point was I'm just hurting myself. I didn't realize in depth how much my kids were hurting because of it, how much, my mom was hurting, how much, my best friends around me were hurting, where all they wanted was the best for me. And I was just sinking and sinking and sinking and sinking. And nobody
Right.
could understand why can't you just do this? But just get up and do it again. And it's like, man, I just it's
Right.
taking everything just to breathe right now, and nobody could understand it. At least that's the way I felt. Um,
That's what your expectation of your that was what your thought process was. They couldn't
right.
peer into that thought process. They could
No.
only have their thought process about what they see you doing. Right.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct. Correct. And then at one point I had a really dear friend of mine and I told her this was last Christmas, just before last Christmas. We met somewhere and we had Chinese food. And I said, listen, I said, "You don't understand. I am trying. I am really trying to pull it together right now. I just, you guys don't see all the work that I'm doing on myself." I said, it doesn't show, and I know it just seems that, and I kind of broke down. She got it, and I had another friend that understood it, but nobody else did. And I knew I had to quit doing drugs. New Year's, I quit and I stayed quit for 28 days. And then a flash from the past showed up at my door and just set me off. And I just dove headfirst right back into my addiction and put it in high gear,
Okay.
um, right up until that moment. When I had that 4 days of visions there, that was enough to it was almost as if the mother of all creation had come down and said, listen, this is it. This is your last chance. We have
Yeah.
tried to do this so many friggin' times, and somehow you always just go right off the path again. This
Hmm.
is it. Do you want to stay here and die, or
Right.
do you want to keep going? And that's it had scared me to the point that I had felt it so deeply that that was so real that I said, enough is enough. I can't live like this. And it's either over or I'm going all in and trying to do this again. And
Right. No
that's why I
straddling the
surrounded
fence.
myself around art and sketching and writing and just getting myself out there in these groups and really talking about my story because it's important. I mean, we have to tell our story.
Yes.
For
I truly believe
decades, I thought I was so alone, like nobody, how could anybody feel what I'm feeling or going through what I'm going through?
that. Yeah.
And we all go through it.
Yeah. And I think men go through it, and because of the story that's embedded deep, deep, deep. I was talking with someone on Instagram on their live, and of course they were talking about the feminine and the masculine and blah blah blah. And the thing is, it's we are, as a human beings, we all have masculine and feminine traits in us. It's when depending on what we are going through is what shows what we use, what we use. But there's a story, and I'll link it back to the question that I'm going to ask you. Okay, so I am an advocate for men knowing the underlying story that's been told so much that it's automatically in their DNA and they don't even know it. Now, whether they are spiritual or religious or not at all, whether they are scientific and they think DNA is just, a physical attribute of their body, whatever. I truly believe that the story that men created for themselves, men don't cry, which means men don't attach themselves to their heart chakra. They do everything and bypass it without that attribute of having love involved in it. So therefore, little boys don't cry. They keep everything in. Men don't cry. They don't complain about when life is fucking with them. Um, they hold everything together. They don't go and complain to their friends that they're being abused by their wife or being abused by their children, because how could that be so? You cannot be a proper man if your wife has a one up on you, or your children have a one up on you, right? Now, this has been happening for generations upon generations upon generations, that men are born with that ability to bypass that 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 love thing and just go straight to the aspect that, oh, I don't have help to identify when maybe I go to work and that's my saving grace from being at home with the crazy wife,
Mhm.
you know and not understand that that same story was rewritten for women, that said, oh, if little boys don't hit little girls, then I can get away with punching this guy because he's not supposed to hit me back. I can get away with abuse because I'm the one that gets abused. When Right? So these are stories where, and it trickles down into the fact that men have psychological problems as well,
Oh,
that they
yes.
go through psychosis, they need help, that whole kind of thing. So here's my question: going through what you did you get to a point when you came out of it? Okay, let's say you've come out of it right now. Did you find out that your poetry could help other people come out of their dark nights of the soul, or their tumultuous onslaught of psychosis? I'll just say psycho. We'll just say psychosis, because we could say or mental anguish. We could say that.
Mhm.
Well,
Yeah, I mean, since then, that's kind of, I immersed myself in these reading rooms and getting to know other artists and really starting to open up and tell my story because, feeling so alone in my life, my whole life, like, how can I tell somebody about these spinning thoughts and there's, the people just think I'm crazy if I'm not crazy. And,
right,
I held it all in. I mean, I held everything in. I just, if I went through it and survived, how many people can I help do the same thing?
right,
By being my best self every single day and putting the foot forward to be my best self. Because it's not where we start, it's where we finish. Who we are when we take that last breath. And I know who I want to be, and I'm striving to be that every day. The
right.
thing is not giving up on yourself and continuing every single day. And if I can do that, how many other people can I inspire to do the same thing?
Right.
Because it's really so simple to change everything. I had this one thing with the key, every day I'd come home and my key would end up on my desk and then it would be in my way and I'd move it and I wouldn't know where I put it. Well, there's a key thingy as soon as you walk in the door, little knobs, you hang your keys up.
right.
So one day I just started trying to do that, and I'd get upstairs and I'd be like, "Holy shit, my keys are still in my pocket." And I'd go down there and put them on. Well, one day about a week ago, I walked in the door and I automatically put them up, and I stopped and I was like, "Oh my god, I finally did it."
Right.
It's that simple, and before you know it, those little changes, as stupid as it sounds, become second nature, and it's a second nature habit.
Right.
So instead of all this negative, I was in traffic the other day and I called somebody and said, "Hey, I'm running late. I'm in traffic coming home." They're like, "Man, that sucks." And I was like, "Well, it only sucks if you choose it to suck." I'm it's a beautiful day out. I've got the windows rolled down. Yeah, I'm in traffic, but the windows are rolled down. I've got some music on the radio. I'm smoking a cigar. I'm in perfect peace. You
Right.
know?
Right. Yes.
It only sucks if we choose it to suck. It's only happy if we choose it to happy. It's all
Have
in
you
how we
ever
look at everything.
have you ever wrote your poetry about that? Or is it
Um,
only the poetry only comes out when you're going through uh
well,
uh
no, I can sit down and write concept poetry, and then, a lot of it is just stream of conscious. I mean, I'll be honest with you, I have days where I write 6, 7, 8 pieces. It just flows out of me.
mhm,
I have days where it's just one piece that'll flow out of me, and then I have like this week I've been like taunted all week. I let go of that one thing and then I got that stanza and I wrote that down. And then it's like a little bit each day. I'll get a line or I'll get another stanza and I'm putting it in place. And it's like, why are you taunting me? Like it always either
is it
comes
a
out or but this time it seems to be taunting me. Like, no, we're just, you're not getting any more right now. And I'll give
it's
you some more.
it's surrender in pieces?
It's yes, yes, and it's been a series of tests this week. And that's
Mm,
why I said at the very beginning, this interview has landed at the perfect time.
okay.
It's just crazy how things work out, but it's like it's been taunting me and it's been lessons all week. And it's like, okay, how you gonna act to this? Okay, here's another line. Okay, how
Okay.
you gonna react to this? Okay, here's another line. And
Okay.
like I said, I've had like this storm in my head all week of just, I know it's in there. I know it wants to come out,
Yeah.
but
So
it's
every
just
time
been,
you ask yourself an embodying question, that's when you get another line, right?
yeah, it's like I really start going deep dive and, I do a lot of driving with work and everything. So I get a lot of windshield time, so all of a sudden, like I don't listen to music that much,
Hmm.
just because there's so much going in my head. I like to be able. I don't want it to be drowned out. I want it to come out. I
Hmm.
want to. And I've really got to get a microphone where I can just talk into it as I'm driving. But
Right.
that's like a meditative state. You're driving down the highway, you get all that scenery, and you almost, you ever have that moment where you're driving, and then all of a sudden, like five exits have gone by, and you're like, oh wow, what?
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
had a lot of those,
right.
and also my ego would say, "How did you even get there in perfect?"
Yeah,
Because all of a sudden you're there. It's like, but and then my thought process. Well, I've got my guardian angels. Oh, I've got my
yeah.
my
But
spirit
it's just that
guides.
meditative state that you go into naturally.
Yeah, yeah.
And people, uh, like for the longest time, I had a very difficult time meditating. I could not meditate to save the life of me.
Hmm.
And then I had this experience through some shamanistic medicine long ago, and out of it, like I had this vision of a fire god. It was like I was in this area, and there's a pyramid, and this fire god came out, and I instantly just dropped down on my knees and start bowing to this being.
Hmm.
And I started doing this breathing, and well, I didn't know what it was then. I was talking to my teacher, and I started breathing for him over the phone so he could hear me how I was breathing. And he's like, "Man, that's fire breathing." I said, "What?" And he's like, "That's fire. Where did you learn?" I said, "Man, I bowed to this thing and I started breathing like that. And, all of a sudden, when I started doing that fire breathing, all of a sudden I could meditate. Like it was just gone, like astral projection." And it was crazy. But, I've also found that, art, taking a long drive or art or, anything that even making a bracelet, because now all your thoughts are focused on that bracelet and all the noise drops out. And in that moment right there, you have a direct connection with
Right,
either your deep subconscious or spirit, whichever you want to call it.
right.
And everything is bliss all of a sudden for that one moment. Like everything just calms and it's bliss. And
Yeah.
you hear your true self at that point. And those are the beautiful moments. So, that's how I choose to live my life these days. I'm not that, I get on these events and I get on these podcasts and I talk and I tell my story, of course, but, um, I used to be big into the music scene. So I'd be out every night seeing music and, it's just not who I
Uh,
am anymore. I'd like to be back to that at some point, but for right now in my life, it's, I go to work and I come home and I do my art and I do this type of stuff and have these kind of conversations and, kind of living the life of a hermit. But
For
it's
for
bringing,
me, my meditation is I've just always been into music and in dancing, and I mean I could
Mhm.
dance. I could me and my best friend, we could literally we would go to clubs, and it wasn't about us wanting to find a man or wanting us or to find a woman or a date or anything. We would just go there to dance. We would just
To
get
get
on the
lost in
floor
the music.
and yeah, truly get lost in the music. And I didn't know that what it was because I would get lost in the music, and time would stand still, right? And literally we'd go and we close the place down. I literally danced so much that I could climb the stairs to go to my to go into my apartment. But the next day
Yeah.
I couldn't walk down the stairs because my knees would be hurting so much. But even now, it's I could find in the way the water flows, I could hear the music. I could hear the octaves. I just, mute, music and dance and songs. Even it doesn't have to be. I never liked segregating my music where this is, when I was raising my kids, it was I did Born Again Christian for a while, and it was
Uh-huh.
about, oh, uh, 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 either music was, what did they call it? I can't remember now what they would call it, but you would listen to it, either it was Christian music, or or
Oh, yeah.
or you know uh what did they call it? uh I can't remember what they called it, but it was like, it wasn't demonic music. They called it something else. It was either non secular music or Christian music, right?
Yep.
But I've no and that didn't stay too long, because we were just, me and my kids were a household of music. There were certain lyrics that we didn't like, but we would always listen to the octaves in the music, and some of the lyrics were really great, and the ones that the lyrics weren't great, we just tuned out. It was just, easy for us to do that. I don't say that we were anything special of the divine or anything, but that was how we meditated, was music and dance.
Mhm.
And it still works that way for me. you know Sometimes I could turn on, just I'll turn on Sonny and Cher and listen to, and the beat goes on, and then before you know it, I'm someplace else with the part of the beat, or part of the rhythm, or in a storyline, or
Yeah.
whatnot,
Hmm.
right?
No, I get the same way through live music. I got into the like jam band scene when I was real young, and a lot of instrumental improvisation and stuff, and I fell in love with that type of music because
Right.
they would literally just take you on a soul journey. Like you would leave your body, and
Yeah.
you'd be sitting there dancing, but you're floating up above somewhere
Yeah.
else, and
Yeah.
it's like you walk out of the show and all of a sudden you can breathe again. Like everything that was troubling you, you have an answer for now, and you can move forward.
Right. And
Yeah.
you walk out the dance hall or the club or whatnot, and all of a sudden you breathe in and you go, wow, that was a beautiful experience. It was
Uh-huh.
right. It takes you a while to, if you could see this is your body, and you walk out here, it's you're meeting up with your whole self,
Uh-huh.
you know and that was the next question I was going to ask. Your poetry and your art, do they ever merge?
Um,
Do they merge together to help you with the story, whatever the story might be for you?
well, they do definitely, definitely. When I start out to do a painting, like I'm an abstract artist, so when I start out doing a painting, I don't have an idea. I
Mhm.
might have, a palette of colors that I want to use, but like
Mhm.
I have no clue what the hell's gonna happen. I just start. I barely use a brush sometimes. I use knives and such,
Right.
and do it that way. And I really don't know what I'm gonna do until it's done.
Until it's done.
Um,
Okay.
it leads you into that flow state where you're
So
not even thinking about it.
so you're channeling.
Hmm.
Yeah. That was going to be, man, this just leading into
Yeah,
all the
because
wonderful questions.
it just puts you in that flow. That's why I say a lot of times before I sit down to write or anything, I'll do some art first
Mhm.
because I just walk up to the canvas and just start going, and I have no idea what I'm doing, or it's just I'm just going with it, and it just silences everything to where it's just me, and I
Right.
can just be, and you know. usually out of that, then I just can sit down, start typing, and like it's almost like you wake up and it's like, oh wow,
Mhm.
okay, I just wrote this. Let's read this. You know. And sometimes there's some really profound things in there where I read it, it's like, oh my God, I gotta read that again.
Mhm.
Um, because you're telling yourself what needs to happen
Okay.
or what areas you need to work on, or, like I find so much of my writing, especially when you put it away for a minute and come back to it like 3, 4 weeks later and you read it again, you really get a deep understanding. You're like, oh wow, okay, that's what I need to look at, or that's what I need to let go of, or
Mhm.
you know, or
Okay.
there's some moments where it's like you're almost warning yourself this is about to happen. Like, get
Okay.
ready for
Okay,
it.
so you follow my Instagram page.
Hmm.
Have you ever heard me speaking my light language?
I have bits and pieces. I jump on when I can.
Okay. Because what I was going to, for me, my light language, or you could call it speaking in tongues, whatever,
Mhm.
that's what it is for me. It's just being an open vessel. And whenever for basically for me, it's kind of, I'm all in, or I can't be half over and half not. So for me, I, the moment I felt that passion of being a vessel for light language, it was like I'm all in. So and I just told the divine, let your word be my word, plain and simple. And sometimes literally, um, I'll start speaking in I'll start talking, and before I know it, I'm speaking in light language. I'm whatnot, and moving my hands or whatnot, or sometimes. And I know that it used to be people would get upset with me because I didn't translate, right? It would just be whatever it was, and then I would always hear the divine say, tell them to sit at the seat of their soul and ask their soul to translate. Because so the reason why I was asking is I had another gentleman. His name is Nigel. I'm trying to think of his page name. I can't think of his screen name. I will, when I think of it, I'll DM you it.
Okay.
Because he channels through his art. But whenever he hears my light language, his art his he'll begin doing his art,
Hmm.
right? So his art, he says he's never seen it where he can do art through channeling through someone else, but it's the
Mhm.
divine giving him the information and him doing his literally. And he's he'll sit there and he'll scratch with the pencil, and just the scratching and different things, and it ends up being the most beautiful definitions of different. You'll see different, like a whole set of a story emerging. You'll
Mhm.
see you'll see creatures, or you'll see angels, or you'll see just uh, I for me it was once was it looked like the consciousness of everything that is and is not, and every uh, expression of the divine showing up in it, right?
That's how my pour art is. I do pour art too, where I won't do like one direct pour and the painting's done. I'll mix different paints kind of together, and then I'll pour, but I pour in dimensions. So, I might do like 4 pours and then put it away, and then I come back the next night and I do a few more. And before
Mhm.
you know it, you might have like 9 different dimensions within the painting.
Yeah.
So you can look at it and you're seeing fish, you're seeing all these different things, and then you could take it and flip it and just sit back and watch it, and
Okay.
flip it and sit back and watch it, and you're being told a story, like, through the different how the different images switch and change and morph.
Uh-huh.
It's very interesting. I did a lot of that in the very beginning, and now I've moved on to doing different things, now I'm just, like, curious, and I try different things, but, um,
His
I
name
do.
is Nigel or Nige, Nige, and his last name is Clegg,
Okay.
Clegg. You might want to look him up on Insta uh, Instagram, because it's all one word, Nigeclegg. He, I think you two would. I I I already hear in my I hear the divine saying collaboration. So
Yeah. Yeah, I'd love that.
you know, um, so yeah,
But, yeah, writing's the same way, like, I'm either all in and committed or I'm not.
hmm
Um, like, I have so many poems that, I have titled as, "Needs work, come back to,"
yeah,
because
right,
it's just, I might start it, and then all of a sudden, it's like everything drops out and I got nothing, and it's like, "Okay, let me bookshelf this one for another day."
okay.
But some pieces
Is
like
that
that I come. Hmm?
the question I was before we is that because it doesn't make sense through your linear mind, or is it because it just kind of you lost the connection with
I did more than so, I lose the connection, or, there's other times where I'm just like, "This no, this just does not work. I do not like this at all," and I'll put it away. But then I'll come back, like, I've found pieces that I wrote, like, 4 years ago, and I've rewritten them, and they take a whole different shape and tell the same story, but in a different way.
okay, okay,
So it's really interesting. It's really interesting, and, I think most writers, I would say, kinda do the same thing, you know?
right,
Um, I think most writers, artists, anybody, we're pretty similar. We create what beauty we can from the darkest of moments, you know?
yeah. Do you have a connection with people that are in your in instead of just on different platforms? Are you in different groups as far as writing in physical?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I am. And I've made, I like to say that we have these soul connections, people that you just kinda you meet them and you look in their eyes and all of a sudden it's like, "Oh my god, where have you been?" You know?
Right. Right.
Or, I didn't even know how much I missed you until I just met you, thank you for becoming, thank you for finding me again.
Right.
And I've met very many in my lifetime. I've met more so recently, where it's just like, even different writers where it's, their poetry just hits me on every level. It's like it takes me right to where they're at, and I just understand it so much. And there's a couple writers out there that feel the same way about my writing, and you're connected somehow, some way. Um, which I have my theories on that too, I guess.
Oh, give
Um,
us a theory that it's
well,
there's infinite
I think soul
possibility.
connections are very powerful. I think it's people that we've known for lifetimes, whether we've lived each other's lives in different lives, or whether we're just made from that same star and born to shine the same way. We see things similar, we feel things similar.
Right.
There's a deep connection there. Um, so those I love having those talks, but you know I've written poems about it, it's just it's those people that are, to me a soulmate is somebody that could be somebody in any form. It could be your brother or sister, it could be your mother, it could be a total stranger that you just met that lives on the street.
Right.
um but it's that special connection where you're really truly supposed to meet each other and help guide each other back
Like
to the
right
light
now.
in some source, and right in that moment. And we're sent these little angels throughout our whole life, that and we may lose connection with them, we may, destroy relationships with them, but people are put in our life for a reason, and we're
Mhm.
supposed to meet them at that exact moment that we do, because there is a lesson to be learned in all of it. Every twist and turn that we take is a lesson, and it's a choice. It's a conscious choice of what way we're going to go. We don't go down path A or we don't take B today.
Right.
We get to make that choice. We all get to make that choice. So
Exactly.
the question is how much suffering do you want to go through before you stop the noise and start to listen? Because mother's always in there talking to us. She's always telling us, which way we need to go, that intuition. We all
Right.
feel it. Um, let go of the outer noise and just listen to yourself. And, the answers come back. I like to think our souls are a library, whether
Yes.
it's full of information from, you know, all our previous lives, or if it's just uploaded to everybody, one single consciousness. So we already have all the information. We already have all the answers. It's just a matter of tapping in to look for it and ask for it and follow up and do the work to
Yeah.
deserve it.
Yeah, I totally agree. We are in alignment. We have all these chapters in our life. We decide when one book closes and another book opens, so that we can start writing the next edition. So
Correct.
we are at an hour and 15 minutes,
Oh,
which I
wow.
love, and I want. I would like. I am hoping that you can share one or two of your poetry with us, and then afterwards, please tell us where people can find you, how they can
Mm.
connect with your poetry, your art. Um, and I give the floor to you.
All right. Um, this one is called Escape. Let's see if I can find it. This one is called Escape. To be bound and gagged, battered and beaten, dragged for miles by your own thoughts of denial, the abuse of physical and mental delivered by the hands and words of your hidden sadistic trial. It's my fault, really. At least that's what I used to think. For I seen the blast of that red flag cannon and smelled cotton candy, dank sugar, and watched your blistering fireworks that brought me so high, I never thought about the landing. Instead of the warning, I saw the carnival luring, taunting, bringing me in with that sweet taste of excitement. How could I not enter through the doors of the house that would soon be so frightening? You had my dopamine flowing, my heart was slowing only to skip a beat. The moment I got lost in those eyes, all your lies. The moment our lips touched and my blood rushed and I was all yours for the taking. A love only to be mistaken, misleading, guided by your own gaslit land that would lead me down the darkest corridor of moments in this existence. You were my drug, and who was I to resist it? An addict to your sweet, blissful, manipulative, sadistic poison, and I knowingly, wantingly pumped it through my veins, wanting that rush, that lust, that blissful blush. Instead, that was the hook with barbs of rust that pierced my skin, reeled me in with passion so exciting and full of sin. only to be punished and tortured within, twisting and bending my mind. I was lost and my light went dim, made to be who I not was, and myself I couldn't find, trapped with no way out, full of doubt, until that one day when something inside you just breaks. And just then, no more can you take. You leave, you don't look back, no matter how hard you're attacked. You go silent and start to spin. And there for a while, their torture wins. You can't move, can't breathe. People give up on you and leave. Or you leave them because to see what you've become in the mirror, how can you face anyone that much clearer? And how could anyone even understand? Some of us don't make it, stake their claim in the darkness and take it. No way out. So then at last, we're at our end, presented with the choice to surrender or live again. I choose life. John Michael.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Mm, thank you. Do you have one more for us?
Yep. This is this is an older one that I wrote. Um, but I think it's perfect for right now. In my life, I have chased fireflies over the salt marshes, jumping the creeks, sometimes falling in. Watched the most beautiful fireworks over the waters while the Boston Pops played in the background. I have watched, I have walked the beaches, dirt roads, mountains, and pavement. I have fished across oceans and have seen the galaxies out there at night. The most beautiful sunrises and sunsets, and that moon. Oh, that moon rising and setting across the ocean's horizon. I've been from the east to the west, north to the south, all over this country. Even did a bit of smuggling along the way. I've seen really bad, horrific things and the most beautiful, precious moments. I've seen and witnessed death. I've watched the birth of my daughters. I have seen love and hate and have felt them both so very much. I have had the most intimate moments with another human, real soul moments. I have been the victim, the crime, and the judge. I have been a lover, fighter, good guy, and bad. I have had every emotion for better or worse. I have regrets and moments I so wish I could take back, where I let fear speak through emotion rather just stating how I felt. And other times I have tried to explain how I felt to someone who just couldn't understand in that moment. Other times I have said nothing at all because fear had grappled its claws so deep in me. It was every bit of a struggle just to gasp a breath, never mind speak a letter or a word. And this is life. It is all energy, and it is all perceived so differently by each individual soul. It is the most breathtakingly beautiful, precious, painfully excruciating, hurtful experience, and every single moment is worth it. I have spent decades of my life trying to kill all of these feelings, and for the first time in my life, I want to feel it all, because feeling all of it is life, and that is the journey to experience. John Michael.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah. My dog was about to bark, so I had to put myself on mute. It's like, no, we're not going to stop the flow of this, right? Yes. So,
um,
can you share with everyone where they can find you? I know that you're on lives with many people on Instagram.
Mhm.
Are you also on Facebook?
Yeah, yeah. You can find me on Instagram at John_Michael_poetry. I'm also on Threads, which is the same handle. Um, and then Facebook is John Michael Poetry. You can look me up, and I'm on there as well. I'm also on TikTok, and
Also,
I don't.
TikTok also as John
Yeah,
Michael.
John Michael Poetry. You can find if you go to my Instagram or my Facebook, it's the link for the TikTok is in there.
Okay,
So
great.
you can find that as well. That's something new I'm trying to do. I'm trying to put videos out and stuff and just get
Uh,
the message out there.
can can I make a suggestion for
Mhm.
something new? I it just came to me and I it said suggested to him Spotify as audible poetry readings. Are you even thinking about something like that?
I have to, it's funny you say that. Yeah, I have been talking about trying to get together a podcast, and I already have people in place to do it. I just need to do
Do it.
it.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
um, and I'm involved with with many others, and I get on these shows with these poetry shows, and like I said, I was really super excited for this one with you, um, because these are our important talks. But yeah, I'm trying to get myself out there, here, there, a little bit everywhere, and share my story, share my life with mental illness and spectrum and addiction um and there is a way out of it, that we can all come out of it, and we can all be
We can all
reminded
come out of
again
it.
of who we really are. You're born with these eyes of wonder, and everything is just the way it's supposed to be, and we go through this path of putting on and wearing this mask because we're told, well, we can't be that way in front of this person, or you got to be this person, or you got to do this. And you know what? For the first time in my life, the mask is off. I am who I am. I'm being the person that I want to be for me. And I'm chasing my dreams, no matter what that looks like to anybody else. It's not that I don't care. It's just I have to do it my way this time. I've done it for everybody else my whole life. And this time's mine. Um,
It feels good.
it feels beautiful. It feels like I'm right where I need to be, doing exactly what I need to be doing. And I can breathe for once. I can walk outdoor with my head held high. That I still have things to take care of, but I'm taking care of them. They're actions in motion. And I've been rebuilding the relationships with my children. I've been rebuilding relationships with my family and other people. And some relationships will never be the same, and that's okay. It's okay.
It
We can
changes.
move forward.
Yeah,
We can
change
we
is the
can
only constant in the life.
Correct, correct.
So it has to change.
But
Have
yeah.
one last question before we go.
Hmm.
Have you shared your poetry and your art with your family, and do you think it's started a healing for them?
Yes, yes. I share a lot of poetry with my mom, and me and my mom have actually had a lot of talks recently. And believe it or not, like I don't want to say we never understood each other, but everything would seem to come to a head-to-head argument.
Mhm.
And for once in our lives, I think she realizes that, oh, well, wait a minute here. Michael has a little bit of knowledge, this, he's learned a few things, and she's really starting to listen. And, I value her opinion. Like I tell her, I value your opinion, but, here's my version. This is what I think, due to, my life, and kind of explain it to her step by step of why I think that way, why I feel that way, and she's
Mhm.
starting to understand it. And she even asked me last week. She was like, "Michael, can you write me a poem about this? Because I want to be able to look at it and see why I do that." And I was like, "Oh my God, like that is an extreme honor, one."
Mhm.
And it was really cool for my mom to even ask for that.
So she
I
asked for you to channel through your poetry for her. I love that.
mhm, yeah.
Yeah.
And I've had friends do it as well. I've got another piece, um, Silent Torture. And from being in the music scene and obviously I'm an older figure now. I kind of look out for the young kids out there, and always have. And there's a lot of poison out there, and I try to steer them right. And there's this one kid that I know that's really going through a really torturous, abusive relationship, and they asked me to write a piece so they could make sense of how they were feeling,
Right.
almost like transmute it into something they could understand. And I sat down, I wrote that out, and that was like a one sitting piece where I wrote it out, but I had been through there, so I was able to tap right back into that, let it out, and then just close the door, and here you go. And it's
Okay. With that
um
one piece called Silent Torture, if you have a pencil available, I'm going to give you another Instagram person I'd like you to get in touch with because
yeah.
she deals with, she wants to change the idea of domestic violence. And if we call, she wants to, she believes if we deal with it and call it torture, that it gets more understanding instead of domestic violence.
Well, and
Uh,
it's not only that too. It's even domestic violence or anything of that sort. There becomes a self um where we're self abuse, we're conflicting abuse upon ourselves at that time,
right,
because we're torturing ourselves within. Not only are we being tortured from somebody else, but now we're putting all of this on us. And I think we almost do more damage to ourselves than anybody else possibly could ever
right.
do.
So this young lady, her and she's been on Soul Talk with Sandy M. And so if you go into my lives, you'll be able to watch the
Okay.
and replay. Her name is Casey, and her last name is Ross. She goes on to her screen name on Instagram for anybody who wants to watch her a lot of her clips. She's a very passionate woman about
Hmm.
the domestic violence, about silent. She calls it silent torture. It's because no what happens behind closed doors stays behind closed doors. She's very passionate about getting it out and making it so that people actually have to listen and they actually have to work through these
Yeah.
processes. Her screen name is spelled GAWDESSLOVE 888, and that's a different way of her spelling Goddess Love 888.
Hmm. Okay.
Okay,
Yeah,
and
I'll reach
you
out.
know, I'm just thinking of all these collaborations that you can, oh, so many collaborations that you can do. I'm so
Well,
thrilled to
just
have had you here on set. So
simply by just getting our story out there and the right people coming together. I mean, it's so simple to make a change, an impactful change too.
yes,
Um, just by relaying what we've been through in our lives, you can help so many people remember again and come back out of the darkness. And
yes.
I think it's something that needs to be done and needs to happen. And I'm really excited that you had me on here today, Sandy. It's been a pleasure with you.
Oh, it's been a
I'd
pleasure with
love
you
to
as
chat
well.
with you again anytime.
Anytime. I've got my soul conversations with Sandra. It's a podcast. I do that live on Instagram, and then it stays there for just a while, and then I put it to my Spotify. So I would love for you to be a guest on that, which
Yeah.
we can deal in not just only the poetry, but it's about the growth and the process from awakening
Hmm.
to to where you are now,
Right.
and you know what I mean.
And it is a process, and we all have to build that process. We have to learn how to build our own process on
Yes,
how
and
to
I would
live.
love for you to be on that as well.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Anytime. Send me some dates and we can work something out for sure.
yes, I definitely will. So everyone, please follow John Michael. Please listen to his poetry. Ask to see his art. It's about growth and expansion, and he's here to serve. Energy wants to serve, and he is energy, so he wants to serve. All right.
That's right.
So thank you so much, John, for being part of Soul Talk with Sandee. Thank you so much. Those follow me on YouTube, but you can also follow me on Instagram. It's Soul Conversations with Sandra. I am also on Spotify. That's called Soul Conversations with Sandra. I am also now doing TikTok, which is Soul Conversations with Sandra. So easy breezy to find me, you know. So I don't think I've forgotten anything. When you're on all of those platforms, please like, subscribe, and share. Thank you so much. Thank you, Michael.
Thank you. I appreciate you so much.
I
This has
appreciate
been
it.
an absolute pleasure and an honor.
Oh, it's been a pleasure and an honor. Man, the energy in this room. I've got to go get me some more living water. That's for sure. Okay, everyone, be blessed. Have a wonderful and beautiful and wholeness to your weekend. Thank you so much for being a part of our discussion. Take care.
Thank you.
Bye
Bye.
bye.